This video continues from the previous video. Oh, well, let's say one more thing about this. You know, these two, the one on the left and the upper right model are 3D printed. And we have 3D printers here, so we can do this too. We can print. Once you guys get further along, we can start printing things out. And as I keep saying, this is a service industry. They hired you, you work for them, designing their design needs. You're providing a service. We are servants. We are commissioned artists. So while you would like for your creativity to shine, you are still tasked with keeping your clients happy. Always treat them with respect. Even if you don't agree with them, you can handle it gracefully and courteously. You can share your professional opinion, but don't act like you know more about their business than they do. And by business, I don't mean just an actual business, but their home, right? Their home life, the way they live, the way they work. And I've had that happen, and I had a client who wanted us to change something, and I totally didn't agree with it. So I just said, okay, you know, I'll give you some samples so that you can, you know, take a look, see if there's something else you like. You have to live with it. But here's why we did what we did and why we recommend that you not change it. And they didn't. So you can be very respectful. Also, something else to keep in mind, you can get, I've seen this happen to people. You can get blackballed. You can get to where you're trying to, you know, grow your business and you've been rude to some people, and makes it harder to find work if they start talking, especially if they have a lot of friends, especially with social media. If they get on social media and badmouth you to all their friends. Atlanta's a big area. The world's a big area, but you need references. Now, let's be honest. There are difficult clients. I never had a choice. I had to work with them. That was one horrible thing about commercial architecture. It wasn't my firm. It wasn't my choice. Whoever they brought to me, I had to work with. Actually, one of the more difficult clients I ever worked with was on a residential restoration project we were doing for a house in Ansley Park. It was a massive, multi-million-dollar house that we were. It was mostly restoration, but there was some renovation. And I had taken it over from someone else, and the client was just. He called me every 5 minutes, and you know, I just finally had to say to him that I would, you know, I would appreciate if we could set up a schedule for when we could talk, because I didn't want to miss his calls. Because I got to where I just wouldn't answer the phone if it was him, and he just drove me nuts. But you can't do that. You can't say that, right? And though I will tell you, he called me one day yelling at me about something, and I just hung up the phone. He calls me back. He's like, "Oh, we got disconnected," on my voicemail. And I waited till he calmed down and I calmed down, and then I called him back and said, "I'm sorry we got cut off, and I had to run to another meeting, so I'm getting back to you now. How can I help you?" It's tough. But if you're running your own business or you're in a position to say no, one of the best things you can do is just say, you know, I've really got a lot on my plate, and I'm not going to be able to handle this, but I can refer you to someone else. And if you do a referral with a difficult client, warn them. Warn your friend, or they're not going to be your friend for much longer. Some people are starting out and they'll be willing to work with difficult clients, or maybe they just don't. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't works differently for them. But yeah, be professional, be respectful, because your reputation as a designer can make or break your career. I mean, this is the truth. I've seen it ruin people's careers when there was someone I knew. He was a photographer. He just wouldn't show up. And he did it one too many times. And now enough people knew about him that he couldn't find work. And the reason you all are here and not just doing this is because it's more than just learning software. People have started to use the term designer where they haven't built up the skills to really be a designer. And so it has to be true. For every aspect of your design, you should be able to explain not only how, but why you did what you did. And I will tell you, a lot of people call themselves designers that can't do that because they don't know. They just threw it together and they got lucky that it worked, or they just had some natural ability that it worked. But it won't work every time. Yours will, because you know why. Principles and elements of design. We've invested time and energy this semester in learning what good design is so that you are now able to apply them and explain why they apply to your work. And this is the difference between a professional designer and someone with an app or a program. You'll be more competitive in the industry as a result of this investment. And that's what I think sometimes a lot of people don't understand is you are investing your time in yourself and in your career. And that if you do that now and up front, you'll start stripping away the competition and start outpacing the competition. It's what learning 3D software 20 years ago did for me. I had no competition at my age level or my experience level. So I was at a senior architectural designer level, and very, very few people could use that software. So it gave me an advantage over everyone else that ever interviewed. And I would say from midpoint of my career on, I got a job offer out of every interview I did. And I was a woman in a male-dominated field. So investing in learning something, especially something no one else knows, will give you a competitive edge that will ensure your career is long and lasts. And even if I went through, a firm I went through a recession, I was always able to find another job very quickly. Finding work was never a problem I had. And I didn't go to a top tier university. Design is a business. You have to be able to work within a budget, handle invoices, and manage clients. And you're going to find sometimes that business decisions outweigh design decisions, and it's frustrating and it's hard, but know this going into it. Being business savvy will help you promote yourself as a designer because not all designers are business savvy. You can take there are 3 courses you can take as part of the entrepreneurship TCC in addition to getting your degree. And by taking those classes, it will give you that business acumen to help run your own company. I recommend it. It's only 3 classes. If you don't make money off your work, you won't stay in business. So you have to work efficiently and productively so that your time is being spent wisely. And of course, there's just a lot more to running a business than just doing the work. That's why I encourage everyone to start out by working for someone else. You learn a lot by working for someone else. Internships are really important. You guys will do an internship course here where you'll get the opportunity to work for someone else for a semester. And just so you know, you'll have to seek that employment. I can, help point you to other people, but I can't just give you that job. It's not my call. I don't run a firm. There's also the opportunity to do a project for me, but you really, if possible, you want to go work on a construction site or in a firm. One of those 2 things where you're getting practical hands-on application outside the classroom. Because you're going to get to do a lot of projects for the college, for me, for your other faculty members. It's good to go work for someone else and get that experience. You will use math a lot. So I don't think it's any shock to you all. Most people know that architects use math. Usually it's the other design fields where this is a big shock that they think, well, I'm not going to use math. Oh, yeah, you are. You have to be good at math from algebra to geometry to be able to excel in this field. We use algebra and geometry all the time. It's just we use it differently. It's not like we do math the way you do math in a math class with theory and abstract variables. We know our variables, and we're just solving for the unknown. And one of my favorite examples to show students as an example of applied algebra is if you're given a floor plan with no dimensions on it at all and asked to duplicate it, and well, with the commercial architecture, we always knew the door was 3 feet. So we would scale something, find out what it said on the scale, and set up an algebra equation and solve for x to find out what the rest of the dimensions were. And it works. So from calculating sizes and timing to budgeting and bookkeeping, numbers are going to be part of your world. And so, like I said, I don't think this is a shock to anybody, even though most designers don't think they're good at math. I would say the one thing that's it is very competitive, but one thing that is a little better in the favor for you all than it is for people in other design fields is that right now there's actually a shortage of residential building designers at your level coming out of industry or coming out of school and into industry. Huge shortage. So by no means slow down, because, if you still don't know what you're doing, no one's going to want to work with you. So you need to know what you're doing. So don't slow down, and don't use this as a crutch, but you should know what you're doing. But this is a competitive industry in general, and right now there's competition for clients among firms. There's that, and that's very competitive. But it is still very important for your work ethic to be strong, for you to know what you're doing if you're going to keep your job. Because ultimately no one is going to invest in you for too long if you don't. This is for Georgia. This is what a residential architect makes. Residential designer, architect, same thing in this case. Let me tell you about why it's residential building design and not residential architecture. The AIA, American Institute of Architects, owns the term architect. You cannot call yourself an architect unless you have sat for and passed their exam. I mean, I still use the terms architect and architecture to refer to what we do because it is what we are doing. There's no difference. But unless you have passed the AIA exam, you are not allowed to call yourself an architect. So for most people coming out of school, starting in the industry, a little less than $30,000 a year. The more experience you have, the higher your salary goes up. People with significant experience who are really dedicated and talented can earn close to 6 figures, as you see. If you don't love what you're doing, you're going to burn out very quickly because this is long hours, harsh deadlines, and it will wear you out. So you really it has to be, as I've said many times, it has to be something you're very passionate about. You love doing this so much that all these other things, that's okay. Because I can assure you there is no perfect career where there aren't negatives or downsides. I love my job, but, of course, there are negatives to it. I work for the state that has a lot of rules and guidelines, and that's very difficult for someone who's creative sometimes. But, it's like, oh, okay, I get to do what I do. So now's the time to really think about this. Is this what you want to do? If it is, great. We're going to jump in next semester and keep going. If it's not, I completely understand, and I truly wish you the best. There's actually a career aptitude test here if you want to take this and see how it works out. And then these are my references for this slide. Okay, this is it. And we're going to stop here, and the next couple of videos are going to be bonus material. See you there.